Hello friends, and welcome back to Mythical Squid Inc. I'm Matthew, and today I drew the Thunderbolts, but 20% more comic book accurate. I would like to preface this by saying there will be no spoilers for the comic books or the movies, except for costume details, of course. First up, we have Ghost. For me personally, I never really liked the Ghost costume from the movies, and when I was researching the costumes from the comics, I was surprised to find such an abundance of cool looking suits. I opted to go for a combination of some of my favorites. Taskmaster. Before this video, I never really thought about it, but Taskmaster's suit is really well designed, with the cape and the hood and the skull all tied together with a banger of a color scheme. Mwah! Chef's kiss. And I wouldn't really say the MCU necessarily botched it, but also I think they could have done better. Bucky, or White Wolf, or whatever you want to call him. From what I could find, we've never gotten a comic book accurate Bucky suit in the MCU, or at least not one with the orange. And I get why, but also I think it looks really cool. When it came to the face, I decided to model it after the actor rather than the comic book, which is a trend I follow with the rest of the characters that show their face. Red Guardian. Red Guardian is the first character where there wasn't much to change, but in my research I did find a costume design with some black detailing, and decided to incorporate it into the final design. Because of this, you could probably argue that the black makes it less comic book accurate, but you're not going to do that because YouTube analytics says you're my grandma. U.S. Agent. This is another one that didn't stray too much from the source material. However, one big change I did notice was changing the black to navy blue in the movie. And so, of course, I also use navy blue. In all seriousness, the navy blue is supposed to be black in my drawing. I was using the rule where you use blue tones instead of just black. But since I didn't use that rule for any other characters, it just looks blue in contrast. Black Widow. This is yet another character that is fairly comic book accurate, which makes sense because it's a skin-tight black suit. It doesn't really give much space for creative interpretation. There's not much else I can say, but all in all, I'm still pretty happy with how it turned out. And there we go. With the finishing touches on Black Widow, the Thunderbolts are all done. While you're watching the background form around these characters, I'd like to ask you to please like, subscribe, and leave a comment for what you'd like me to draw next. Okay, thanks for watching. You can go now.